At least one of the 43 missing Mexican college students has been identified among charred remains found near a landfill site. The students went missing in September when they were handed by corrupt police to a drugs gang, which is believed to have then killed them. Well, let's get more on this from the journalist Duncan Tucker, who's in Guadalajara in Mexico. Duncan, just tell us the latest on this. Do we have the name of the student?
Hi, Luquessa. Thanks for having me on tonight. So the latest is that the college where the missing students were studying have confirmed that a team of independent forensic scientists from Argentina have identified one of the students, 19-year-old Alexander Mora, from a fragment of bone and a tooth that were found at the rubbish site, where it's believed that the local drug gang murdered the students and then set fire to their bodies.
Duncan, has there been any more in terms of, we saw a report a few weeks ago now where the finger of blame, I believe, was pointed to the mayor. Him and his wife were found hiding in a cupboard in their home. Any more in terms of culpability?
Yeah, there's been over 70 people arrested now. Most of them are local police officers from the town and the neighboring town where this took place, and several members of a local drug gang, Guerreros Unidos, as well. But it's still believed that the mayor and his wife were the people behind this, the ones who ordered that the students were abducted.
OK, so we have the ID of one of those students. What are the families saying of the other 43?
Well, up until now, the families have refused to believe the official account from the government, and they still hold out hope that their sons will still be found alive. But this identification came from an independent team, not from the government, so it is looking increasingly unlikely that the rest of the students will be found alive.
Right, just tell us and take us through why it's been so difficult to identify the students.
Well, firstly, they began looking for mass graves in the local area, and they found at least 38 different bodies in mass graves near the town where the students were disappeared. But it actually turned out that none of those bodies were the students. They were just other people that had been killed and for whatever reason had not been reported. And then it's believed that once the students were killed, they set fire to their bodies, threw their ashes in a local river, and the police found some of the ashes in a plastic bag, but that's all they've really got to go on, just a few charred remains. So they've actually sent the remains to a specialist laboratory in Austria, where they're hoping that forensic scientists will be able to identify more of the victims.
Now, as you said, there were mass graves that had been found of other victims. This particular case has outraged Mexico. We have seen protests taking place in the town itself and across Mexico. Why has this really upset the people of the country?
I think there's two reasons. One is that these weren't people that have been involved in crimes or involved in drug traffic or anything like that. They were just innocent students who were trying to become teachers so that they could better themselves. And the other factor is that those responsible, again, they weren't just drug traffickers. Because it was believed that the mayor and the local police force were responsible for abducting them, people see it as a state crime, an example of the corruption and the impunity that has really paralyzed Mexico in recent years.
OK, so what's President Nieto saying about this?
Well, he took a long time to respond to it. He took over a week to launch an investigation, and for a long time he tried to downplay it and say that the federal government held no responsibility because it was down to the local authorities to solve this crime. But there's been an increasing amount of pressure on the president to solve the crime and to fix Mexico's security problems. So last week he announced a range of reforms to change the structure of the police forces and try to fight the infiltration of government by organized crimes. But many Mexicans have heard similar policies before, and many people, they don't have much optimism that this is really going to change the situation in Mexico.
Now, following on from the back of this particular case, we've also heard the story of, I think it's back in June, July, there were some high school students that also disappeared. Could you give us a little bit more detail about this?
Yes, there were reports from a French news agency that another 30 students disappeared from Cocula, which is the town next to to where the students disappeared. And again, it's thought that the local police officers were actually the ones who took them away. However, there's been some debate over the accuracy of this story. The local authorities say they had reports of 30 people disappearing, but it was actually June or July of last year, not this year. And the French news agency actually retracted part of its story yesterday, so it's still not clear exactly what happened there. It seems that some people did disappear, but the date that this happened, it may have been a year ago.
So many questions unanswered. And very finally, I'm not sure if you would have answered this exact point. Why students?
That's what people want to know, really. I mean, the college where they came from, it does have a history of radicalism. It's a very left-wing college for the poorest students from rural areas. And there have been past guerrilla leaders that have come from this school. So the government has always been slightly antagonistic towards this school. There's been previous cases of students being attacked by police. But I mean, no one can justify what happened to these students, and there's still no one's really put forward a really clear explanation of why this happened to them, really.
Duncan Tucker there in Guadalajara, fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Thank you.